and get things going. So welcome everybody to the Selling Service Panel discussion brought to you by OneVision and Vital. This is, as some or most of you may know, a continuation of a previous session that we did back just before the holidays, and that session went so well. We had so much great engagement and feedback after the session that we decided it would make sense to bring the group together and do it again. So we're excited to jump in. For those of you who may not know, my name is Jason Griffing. I am the Director of Product at OneVision. I will be playing the role of moderator in today's discussion, and I'm joined by two sales gurus here on the call, Brad Camp, who is OneVision's Director of Business Development, and Patrick Martinez, who is the founder and CEO of Five Stone Solutions, as well as the leader of Vital's Elite Sales Academy. So I'll give more detailed introductions to both of those gentlemen here shortly. For now, know again that we are thrilled to have you on this discussion today, and really this panel is going to be about much more than just kind of vanilla selling techniques. These selling service workshops are all about really creating a fundamental mindset shift and really embracing the immense value that you as integrators are bringing to your clients as premium technology service providers. So we're excited to share some insights to that in that regard. Again, some of you may have attended our first session. We focused on some pretty high-level topics there, and we'll recap those shortly for those of you who were not there. Our goal today, to be totally clear, is not to rehash stuff from the first session. We're going to go a little bit deeper on some of those topics and maybe get a little bit more tactical and hands-on with some of the tactics and things that you can implement to drive success in this part of your business. So whether you're just getting started or you are looking to enhance a workflow or process that you've already got working in your company, we think and hope that you're going to come away from today's workshop with some practical strategies and ideas that you can implement in your business to sort of take things to the next level. So before we get into the content, I want to give just a very quick, more detailed introduction to our two panelists. Again, we have Brad Camp. Brad is OneVision's Director of Business Development. He is joining us from the Richmond, Virginia area. Brad brings 20 years of experience as a top-performing sales professional in the consumer technology industry. He's driven by a passion to teach others, to make lasting impressions, and to achieve at the highest level. Away from work, Brad is an avid whitewater kayaker. He plays competitive basketball and is also a volunteer with the James River Outdoor Coalition to improve the use and quality of Richmond's park systems. Brad, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. And second, we are joined by Patrick Martinez. Patrick is the founder and CEO of Five Stone Solutions, a sales hiring and coaching firm focused on helping technology and service companies achieve extraordinary results. He is joining us from the Los Angeles area. He also has a 20-plus year career as an entrepreneur, CEO, and leading sales professional, where he has been dedicated to inspiring others to realize their vision of success. Patrick excels at creating processes to ensure goals are achieved and providing the coaching and encouragement necessary to foster positive and lasting change. Away from work, you can find Patrick camping or hanging out at the beach with his family. So we're glad you took a break from the beach to be here today, Patrick. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. We finally got some beach weather, which was nice. So,
yeah, good. Glad to hear that.
We always get a little February beach weather. Sorry for the rest of the country.
Well, I'm here in the Denver area, and it's about 60 degrees today. So
that's not too bad.
That. Yeah,
that's not bad.
Spring is in the air here.
Yeah.
Our first hints of it. 50 in Michigan. That's pretty good too for this time of year.
Nice.
All right. So yeah, we're going to just do a quick recap of kind of key takeaways from our initial session. Then I'll give a short preview of what we're going to talk about on today's session, and then we're going to jump into the meat and potatoes. So for those of you who were on the original session and maybe could benefit from a recap, or for those of you who missed the original session, high-level topics that we touched on. Number one, really confidence. So instilling that confidence, that mindset that really this is a conversation that you're having with clients. It's not a mandate. It's about giving them choice. It's about ensuring you're running a healthy company. And so really embracing some of these subconscious mindset shifts that we all need to make. And we're going to talk more about some of that today as well. We also got into some of the tactics. So starting the conversation early, leveraging things like proactive site visits to reinforce the value that you're providing, focusing your pitch on the experience, not the features, some of those key ideas. And then finally, we talked about positioning. So offering different options to your clients, streamlining the purchasing process, giving them simple, consistent pricing, and some of those ideas around that. So again, that's just a very, very high level, quick recap of what we touched on in session one. Today's session is going to be a bit of a continuation, again, of those themes. So what we're really focused on today is going to be more of what I would call the blocking and tackling. So really practical techniques for presenting premium service plans and driving high attachment rates, particularly when you're out there selling new projects, getting clients to consistently sign up for these plans as part of that new project sales cycle. Number two, building the muscle. So strategies to sharpen your skills and those of your team, as well as overcoming objections. So what are some of the common objections and questions that you might anticipate from your clients, and really highlighting how easily those can be overcome with the right approach. So again, we are very excited to jump into all that, and let's go ahead and get started. So our very first topic that we want to jump into is again around sales tactics. So let's start at the beginning here of the process, and I want to come to you first, Patrick, and really talk about this idea of presenting service plans in the proposal. So this is a question we get a lot at OneVision: is what's the best way to do this? What's the best way to include these in the proposal? There are some different schools of thought around how to go about this, and I'd love to hear your high-level thoughts on what are the best techniques and the things that you've seen the most success with when it comes to presenting these premium service plans as part of that new project sales cycle.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of presenting it with the proposal. I've had some objections to that by integrators or other luxury home salespeople, whatever industry they're in, because they feel like it's a little too much, or they might be overwhelming the client, or they're trying to focus on this thing they're working on, and a lot of it is kind of what I call mental noise. It's just in your head. It's imaginary objections. You have to think about the fact that these clients are trying to solve a problem, and you're trying to help them solve that problem. And you want to try to help them solve an all-inclusive problem. And then that includes ongoing service and maintenance after the initial, installation, or after the initial fitment is done. So I just try to, hit people over the head with that. It's in your head and it's make-believe. They're trying to solve a problem. You need to be easy to do business with and help them solve their problem. I've also seen some people like bake service plans in, they just like include the first year or 2 years or whatever. And that's got some merit in some cases. The challenge, though, is if you don't set it up well, you kind of set yourself up for some challenges around renewals, because they will just start to assume that, oh, that's just how the world works. So you really need to be having direct conversations on what you're doing. If you do include it, talk about it, and don't just hide it. So that's a big one too, is just kind of stressing that communication, but always up front. Never later. Oh, we'll get that at the end when they, after the install, or, towards the end, we'll bring it up. No, you do bring it up towards the end if they didn't sign up in the beginning, but you really want to start with that in the beginning for sure. Oh, you're muted.
Jason, we've lost your mic.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, no, that's one of the most important points that we talk to integrators frequently about when this topic comes up is, no matter what you do, make sure you're not burying or hiding it, right? If you're tucking this in with like a router in the AV rack and hoping that it doesn't come up, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Ultimately, you can't shy away from this topic. There are lots of different ways you can approach presenting it in the proposal, but the worst thing you can do is try to use that as sort of a tactic to bury it, right? I think that's a really important point.
Yeah,
Brad,
you set yourself up for future challenges for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And nasty surprises as well, right? Like, so the big thing, one of my big things is, as a longtime, industry guy and former integrator, is clients are going to realize that these systems need service and support at some point. And the question is, are they going to be unpleasantly surprised by that when they finally move into the home and start using it, or are you going to get out in front of that and control the narrative? So again, I think that's a really important point. Brad, what would you add here?
Yeah, I mean, all very relevant suggestions. I mean, I actually think this precedes the proposal, though. I think the proposal, at least from my DNA, has always been a validation of the things that you discussed with the client in an earlier conversation. Always had a philosophy: nobody likes surprises. I never wanted a client to go to the last page of a proposal and see a number, and that be a number that startled them. If it startled them, then I wasn't doing my job. Same thing goes for service. I don't want them seeing a line item on a proposal saying, "Oh, what is this? Tell me more." I want this to be a validation of something that we've had a conversation with about maybe once or even 2 or 3 times before that, depending on what the client interactions look like. built the companies that are most successful with service have made service part of their DNA. It's something that they talk about early, they talk about often. It's part of their value proposition. What makes us different here at our company is this. So
Totally,
if you
totally.
guys can use the proposal as simply a way to say, we talked about this, and now we're just confirming that your opinions haven't changed, you will be a lot more successful in achieving whatever goal it is that you set out to achieve.
Yeah. I think that's a
100%.
really important point is that the first time that they hear about the plan shouldn't be in the proposal either, right? A minute ago I said the first time that they find out the importance of service and support shouldn't be when they move in and they're like, oh, this doesn't always work 100% of the time. Similarly, the first time they're hearing about service plans really shouldn't be when they're seeing it in the proposal. It should be part of that core DNA, part of that initial pitch. We talk about it all the time at OneVision. And I would say, of all the different ingredients that we see when we look across the integrators that we work with, when it comes to those who really excel at driving premium service plans versus those who maybe are more average or even struggle to get any traction at all, one of the biggest differences is that willingness, right, to lean in and have that conversation. And one of the things that we see all the time is that those companies that are willing to do that are going to see much higher success rates.
And one more thing to add, just like many of you out there who are in the sales process and have had a conversation with a client about A, B, or C, and it's morphed into something much more complex and more beneficial for your company than the original kind of foundational topic became. Service can be one of those things. Like that's why we encourage that our partners have a variety of options for clients to choose from because you might start talking about service really at the foundational level. Like many of our clients enjoy having a really basic benefit that may sound simple, but it's pretty complex to deliver upon, and that's 24/7 remote support. But we offer all these other things. You might actually end up taking a client from A all the way up to Z if you just talk about it versus putting it on the proposal and hoping that it sticks. So again, there's a lot of benefits beyond just delivering a better experience and having a happier customer to having a conversation early. And it can actually end up putting more money in your company and in your own pocket.
Yep, absolutely. Rob said in the chat, if done right, it should have been gone over and selected before the proposal goes out to the client. So 100%, Rob, totally agree with that. This sort of segues, and Brad, I want to stick with you on this next question because I think this segues nicely into one of the things, at least that I see personally, is there can be a bit of a hesitation with some integrators to broach this topic, and more specifically, one of the things I think integrators maybe get stuck on is this mindset that it's some sort of hard sell to the client, and that the goal of this conversation is to try to sort of force every client into a plan, which is not the case at
Right.
all. Really, this is about just presenting options to your clients the same way that you maybe present multiple options with a speaker lineup or TVs. You want to present different options for service. And I'd love to hear you talk about this idea of not looking at it as driving every client into a plan, but instead looking at it as driving every client to make an explicit choice. That's a subtle but really important distinction.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many different ways to look at this. And I'm a big believer in like analogies or things of that nature. But like, if you just think about the concept of you have everybody in one bucket, then nobody is really more important or less important than everybody else. You have to treat everybody the same, and that's actually what got us into this mess. If you don't understand who your unique clients are, then you have no choice but to treat every single client like your most important client. And the reality is they aren't all your most important client, and most of them don't expect to be your most important client. But we are truly breaking ourselves as integrators by trying to respond quickly 24/7, 365 to every single outreach. When a client says jump, jump, I mean, I joke about this sometimes on call, but I've had clients literally say, Brad, you better bring a sleeping bag and a cot because you're not leaving until this works. You know, if every one of my clients asked me to do that, we would be on a call right today, right? I'd
Yeah,
be doing something completely
you'd be in a
different.
different industry. Yeah.
Completely different industry. Some might argue I should probably consider that, but I'm just kidding. So bringing this back to the value proposition that we talked about earlier, making this part of your DNA, making this part of your pitch per se. Um, you can really stand out from your competition. You can win more projects because of the way that you present this. So I'm going to give you guys an example of a way that I might present this if I were in your shoes today. I'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, unlike our competition, we do not prescribe our service experience to you. If you are evaluating a couple different integrators, and by the way, if you're not, you might want to do that because I want you to be 100% confident in choosing us if you ultimately go down this path. But if you're evaluating other people, I challenge you to ask one question. If you ask them how they take care of you after the sale, what is their response? I guarantee you they're going to tell you exactly how they take care of you. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I just think there's a better way. So we here at my invisible company, 210 AV, we do things differently. We ask every single customer what their unique expectations are. Because we recognize that you are unique. You're going to have a different expectation than the last customer that I worked with. And we want to know what that is so that we can meet you there every time. Now, some of those expectations do come at a cost, and we charge just enough to do an amazing job and guarantee those benefits. And many of our customers love them. But by the way, there's no requirement to be one of our premium members. You can have everything from 24/7 support to priority access to our team to remote monitoring or even being our most important customer. But if you're just looking for on-site appointments, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 at our standard hourly rate, first come, first serve, that's perfectly fine. We just want to know where you are. And this is kind of coming back to what Patrick was talking about earlier. Which path works best for you? And I just presented that client 5 options very subtly. You can be a non-member, you can have remote support, you can have priority access to my team, you can have remote monitoring, or you can be my most important client. Which one is it? And the reality is if you ask it in such a subtle way, your clients are going to be often very quick to identify who they are. And most of the time, they're going to choose a paid benefit. And this kind of goes back to my original statement that if you just prescribe it, most people are prescribing, the most basic benefit, 24/7 support at their lowest offering, minimum viable product. The reality is most customers want more than that if you ask. So these are really the opportunities that exist if you get out of your own way.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And I think I love when you do that pitch because I've heard you do that probably 100 times at this point. And every time I hear it, I still love it because I think it just oozes confidence. And I think that's one of the big points. And Rob kind of said this in the chat. He said, the more comfortable you make support plans in your own words, the more comfortable the client will be. And so I think getting comfortable with the idea that this is just about presenting options to your clients and getting them to make a choice is such a huge first step in that process because it's going to give you the confidence to just have the conversation and not be afraid of it, right? And I know, Patrick, this is something you talk about a lot as well, is like integrators kind of getting out of their own heads about this conversation. What would you add to this particular thread?
Well, Brad kind of brought me back to my old integration days with that concept of treating everybody the same. Because when I had my company, this is a long time ago, and we felt obligated based on people had spent money with us that we wanted to take care of them. And we did kind of treat everybody. We tried to reach an unattainable level of service for everyone that we weren't charging for, by the way. And so that kind of like made me laugh when you said that. It's like one of those things when everybody's important, then no one's important. And I think what these class of services do, these class of service offerings that you're doing, or that you should be doing in your companies do, is it removes emotion from the process. Either they have this plan and they get this service, or they have this plan and they get this service, or they have no plan and they get, whatever other service you're doing. And removing that emotion is really key to the sanity of your service providers. So your promise keepers that are in the field or that are answering the phones. It also removes a lot of stress and emotion off the backs of the owners and the salespeople. Because I think sometimes the salespeople often will get sucked into these situations where we have to take care of Mr. Smith because he did XYZ, or he's going to refer us 1, 2, 3, or he's a really great customer. But we've had multiple conversations with Mr. Smith about getting into a plan, and he has consistently rejected us. So we kind of have to like draw some lines and have some structure around class of service and level of service, rather than making decisions based on emotion or how much money they spent or whether or not we like them or we don't like them. So a lot of what we do in our processes is remove emotion. We remove emotion from the hiring process. We remove emotion from the sales process. So this is just another area where, we would work with you to like, and encourage you to like remove emotion from it. And having structured service plans that are discussed way up front, like Brad is suggesting, is super key to that removal of emotion. So
Yeah, 100%. We sometimes talk at OneVision about the idea of going from best effort service to best in class service. And one of the core ideas that we talk about when we frame that up is this idea that you've both touched on now, where if everyone's important, nobody's important. But the point I want to make is just to underline the comment that Patrick made there of the amount of subjective decision making that goes, like when you don't have a framework like this where you can say, okay, Bob the client called in, he's on this plan, this is the level of service that he's entitled to, where instead you're saying, oh crap, Bob is having an issue with his home theater and it's Friday at 7, and now I have to go through the mental gymnastics of like, do I give him the support right now? How important is he? How much money did he spend? How pissed off is he?
yeah,
Blah 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 blah,
yeah,
all the way down the line. I think people just dramatically underestimate the amount of cognitive energy that evaluation process takes.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and ultimately, if you have a framework in place where you can just sort of say, okay, he's on this plan, it means we need to respond, then that all of that cognitive energy, all that mental energy can instead be focused on just making the client happy instead of making a subjective decision every time. Like decisions generally are very cognitively expensive. And you talked about removing the emotion. I would add we're also simplifying the decision-making
yeah,
process as
way,
well.
yeah. And then also you have like the Monday morning, oh my gosh, this thing happened over the weekend. We didn't do XYZ, or we should have done 1, 2, 3. And then your service providers can say, hey, here's this plan. Here's what happened. Here's a timeline. Here's what we did. We were in full compliance of what we were supposed to do. And so it kind of helps, kind of just even out some of the emotion there on the back end too, and the
Right.
reaction. So,
Yeah.
Right.
What's interesting about this, we talk about this sometimes when we try to encourage dealers to think about, even if they're not going to work with OneVision, to just think about offering this multi-tiered structure. I want you to envision a world where you have all these options and all your clients say no. Wouldn't that be an awesome problem to have?
right.
Right? All of a
I like that.
sudden, all of your service problems just went away.
Yeah.
Now
Business
everybody is
hours
willing.
only. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's business hours only, first come, first serve, willing to wait for
Yeah,
the next available appointment, pay whatever hourly rate you want to charge. Everybody's
totally.
filing up like a bunch of kindergartners in line, for recess.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate outcome. So this is, we talk, Jason, you and I talk a lot about sanity, right? Like how do you create sanity around service? Recurring revenue, which a lot of you are probably here because you're looking to build recurring revenue. This is RMR is a byproduct of creating sanity within your service system. And having a structure like this that gives your clients choice, gives you guys operational process to follow, is how you build that sanity.
Yeah, absolutely. I see Maddie Brown has a hand up. I'm gonna try this out. We haven't done this on one of these workshops yet, but Maddie, if you're, oh, did it just go down? Maybe she had it up on accident. I was gonna click allow to talk. So, anyways, if anyone else has a question and wants to come on and express that question verbally, definitely willing to experiment with that on this session. So it looks like John is our first brave volunteer. So John, you're live here. You might have to unmute your mic. There you go. What do you got?
I was just going to say service. A lot of people are scared of service. We use it as we're back in the house. We get to see what else you need and selling opportunity, right? So I don't shy away from it at all. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's go ahead, Brad.
yeah, yeah, us integrators in the room, right? We've been on job sites and you hear these sometimes uh, enthusiastic words, sometimes dreaded words, which is, hey, Brad, while you're here, right?
Yeah.
While you're here, that's going to trigger an emotion that's different depending on which role you play. But that's just an example of how your client relationship can evolve over time if you nurture it, right? That while you're here often will lead to another project or a sale if you're listening, right? So, John, really great point to make there.
Yeah, absolutely, John. Thanks for hopping on. Looks like we've got another brave audience member here, and Craig. So, Craig, you are on. You might have to unmute your mic. What do you got?
All right. Hey, guys.
Hey, Craig.
I just wanted to say that the RMR is definitely like the cherry on top, getting your life back by having a process and having that peace of mind that like setting expectations. This is how it is. You can be upfront with the clients and say, this is how we do service. And I mean, my phone doesn't hasn't rung after business hours unless I'm on call. And since we signed up, I mean, it really is ridiculous. So it just having that process in place is just like liberating.
Such a great point, Craig. Thanks for that. Yeah, Craig is a OneVision partner, and we're grateful to have you as a partner, Craig. So glad to hear that your phone isn't ringing as much. And I know you're a cyclist, right? You've been able to get out and ride that bike a little more. So just like you said, a nice benefit to having this sort of structure in place, and really appreciate you hopping on and sharing that perspective.
Yeah,
Cool.
real quick about
Go
Craig,
ahead.
just and a lot of our OneVision partners, like I'm a big believer in social proof. Get out there and talk to your fellow integrators. See what are they doing. If you want to emulate success, like Craig just got on the call and said, I haven't taken a call unless I'm on call and whatever. Like connect with Craig outside of this meeting and hear about what he's doing. I'm sure he'll tell you about OneVision, but there's also probably some things that he's done around that to create that sanity within his service department.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's move here to the next high-level topic that I wanted to jump into, which is the idea of how do you incentivize these plans? So a lot of times in this business, we have people who have been doing sales maybe for a really long time, but they've spent their whole career maybe building a muscle around selling hardware, selling projects. Maybe now you're asking them to shift gears a little bit and get comfortable also selling service and support. And as a business, you need to think about also how to incentivize that maybe in a similar or possibly even the same way, right? That you incentivize product and hardware sales. So this idea of using incentive programs or competitions to maybe drive higher levels of engagement from your sales team, I think is a really important topic around selling premium services. And Patrick, I'd love to come to you first and get your thoughts and general guidance around this particular topic.
Yeah, this is kind of a big topic, really, when you think about it, because it somewhat starts with pricing, and also starts with offering. So sometimes you'll have a service plan that is just providing access, right? Like it just provides access to your team, or access to you on the phones, or access to OneVision. And then other times there'd be where you're starting to bake in actual labor and service calls, maybe even some product updates or upgrades. So you got to figure out like what your offering is going to be, and that kind of will inform pricing. And I've seen a lot of integrator, engineer brains, even in other industries, where they get really hung up on the pricing model and they can't get their head around it, because they're so afraid of the risk. What happens if I include labor? What happens if the client exceeds the labor amounts or needs a bunch of stuff or something breaks? Like they get super hung up on all the worst case what ifs, so much so that they can't execute on a plan. So that's a big one where you have to get out of your own way or have an outside person help you, because the reality is it's all nonsense. Even if you lose money on selling a plan, you make money on building value in the company, which is a really hard concept for people to get their head around. So I'll just back up a little bit. First thing is, what are we offering? Are we just offering access? Are we offering access and service baked in? And then if we do that, we need to price it accordingly. We need to not get too hung up on all the worst case possibilities. And then we need to incentivize it pretty healthily, because what most what I call grown-up companies realize, so companies beyond $20 million or $30 million, what they realize is lifetime value of the client is everything. So when you get a new client, how much money are they going to spend with you over what amount of time? That's your lifetime value. So if I get a new service client that's going to spend $1,000 a month with me, and let's say it includes some labor, and then they stay with me on average 5 years. Now I know that lifetime value of that client is $60,000 statistically. Some will stay less, some will stay longer, some will spend more, some will spend less, but we're looking at a $60,000 number. If you price your plans well, which should have stronger margin than just either your break fix labor rates or you're selling a widget and some labor, should have higher rates, higher margin than all of that stuff. You should have a pretty healthy margin and some pretty good dollars to spend of that $60,000 to spend, on landing that service plan client. And this is where it gets really gnarly. If my lifetime value is 60 grand and I'm making $30,000, to say for easy math, because it's early for me still, and I'm going to make $30,000. I could afford to pay a salesperson $5,000 to get me that client. And you're like, holy cow, that's so much money. There's no way I would ever spend that much money. But let me put it in a different way. If you were standing in front of a vending machine and that vending machine only took $5,000 bills, and at the bottom of the vending machine came out $30,000 every time you put a $5,000 bill in, what else would you do with your day all day? Nothing. You would just put $5,000 in that machine and get 30 out the bottom. So when you start to look at things in the big picture, like say like bigger companies do, and you really kind of zoom out, you can really start to get creative and see how things work. The other thing that the three of us chatted a bit about, is really encouraging, if you have high drive hunting salespeople on the tip of the spear, really like, hard drivers, not subject matter expert engineers so much, and not your service people, but we'll talk about that later, but like hard charging salespeople, you want to pay them as much of that money up front as possible. They are low attention span, low detail, high urgency. They want to ring the bell and they want to move on to the next thing. So if you build a compensation plan that's too complicated or drags out too long, they're going to kind of lose interest. So you want to also kind of know your audience on that. But my encouragement is that it's very hard to pay too much for commission on this kind of stuff. And I know a lot of people are like probably up in arms right now. I can hear it already through the chat. But here's the secret. I don't care. I'm right. That's where we're at. So it's very hard to pay too much. And it's very hard to screw up your pricing. So take a risk. You can always change your pricing. You can always adjust your pricing. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do this one time forever and ever. Build some pricing, build some plans, run them for a year or two, try them out. And then once you get some of my clients that are in the integration space that are a little more mature in their service plan offerings, now we're doing some really fun, creative stuff. We're like, okay, if we get clients to commit, like one of my clients just had one of their clients commit to a 5-year plan at a big dollar amount for full service. And part of that was they're going to get a little hardware upgrade allowance because their system is now, I think we're in year 6-ish of their system. So this is going to take their system from year 6 to year 11, where we all know things are going to start to break and start to be replaced. So they've actually included a little hardware allowance carrot to get the client to commit to the 5 years. And if these are big dollar amounts too, the things that, would be pretty eye-opening, I think, for a lot of folks. So once you kind of get good and have fun with it, it gets really fun, and you can start to incentivize salespeople well. You can start to incentivize clients well, and you start to build this clientele that's going to be with you a long time and really drive that lifetime value of the client, which then drives the value of your company beyond, most luxury home services companies, their value is based on how many vehicles they have, the pile of boxes in the back, and the last sale they closed. That's it. Whereas if you build this stuff in, you start to create a lot of value. I know personally integration companies that are working on like $200,000 to $300,000 in RMR on their service plans per year. And that creates a lot of value when it's time to exit. So
yeah, I love that point around not being like maybe penny wise and pound foolish is a way to say it, right? Like if you really get stuck in like bean counting mode on these plans and you're just looking so narrowly at like RMR in versus how much I spend to kind of service that account, like you need to think about stuff like that.
Sure.
But that's not the only criteria, right? And you've got to take a bit of a bigger perspective and not, because one of the other problems with getting into that kind of bean counting mode is it's very easy to focus on like the worst case scenario. So you start to index around clients who are going to be just hammering your service department when you realize like the law of averages is going to kick in here. And realistically, like most of your clients aren't going to be hammering your service department either way. And the truth is they're probably going to use service regardless. So you might as well have a kind of wrapper around that, a framework, right? And so ultimately, again, just zooming out and taking that broader perspective about what is the client lifetime value? What is the value of keeping that client happy and well serviced through the life of that system? What is also the value of like the sanity and structure that you create within your company?
That's all bonus money. Yeah,
all
that's
of
all
this
bonus.
stuff, just
Yeah.
like you gotta take all of that into consideration. So
Yeah,
so that
and I want
may
to.
feel like an aside to the incentive programs, but like if you're pricing
Yeah.
this correctly, Patrick's point is you've got the room to then do those kinds of programs.
Totally. And you have a lot of runway. So I want to pull back to one thing that Brad said about it permeating the culture. This thinking, this mindset of not doing bean counting also really helps in getting your team on board with selling service plans, especially if it's a new thing for your company, because it's an adjustment. I've seen companies that start to sell service plans and all inclusive plans. Again, I'm talking about like including some labor and some other stuff, not just the access plans, but they'll, like, oh, well, this is a lot of money. And if we figure out how many system checks and how many potential service calls and how many, like, the math just doesn't pencil out. And that's where we have to roll back and remind them that we're not trading time for money. We're selling peace of mind and we're selling sanity. And when you get your head around that it's a professional sale on peace of mind and sanity, it's not about the hours anymore. And you're not trading time for money and you're not bean counting. And so it's both sides of this equation. Getting everybody thinking that way is really critical to having it become part of your culture, like Brad suggested.
Yeah, absolutely. Brad, I want to come over to you. What would you add to this general idea around using incentive programs and really getting sales teams aligned on the idea of selling these plans?
Yeah, I'm smiling because I'm sure most of the audience is like waiting for like the like binary. Here's the recipe, like go do it. I'm actually going to give you guys an example when I land this plane. But humans are very interesting individuals. That's why there's like psychologists and people that study human behavior. If you're at all interested in what drives your team, there is a really good book that you guys could potentially check out. It's called Drive. It's by an author. I think his name is Daniel Pink or Daniel H. Pink or something like that. Um, Warning, there are a lot of examples in there. So you might be able to power read the book, but you'll get the sentiment that like not the same thing works for every single person. And what I've noticed about integrators is that not all integrators have salespeople that are natural salespeople. They may have been technicians that have grown up out of the field and into sales. And they may have a different kind of, again, drive from the traditional salesperson that Patrick was kind of optimizing his experience for, where they're driven by like that front end incentive.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
my recommendation, and you'll hear this as a kind of a common theme if we get to know each other, because I'm a big believer in giving people the power of choice, but never losing control. You want to be happy with whatever outcome comes from the power of choice, but allow the person or people that you're working with or serving to control their own destiny. So it might not be as binary of having one way that you pay your team. You might give your sales team the option to get paid this way or that way. Maybe they're an employee that is being groomed to take over the company and they're interested in building up a recurring revenue, but they're getting a multiplier every month or every year that that client's on a membership. But you might have somebody, by the way, if I start to dovetail out, I apologize, my internet may be going in and out.
Yeah, it got a little choppy for just a second there, but you're good now.
Okay, did the message come through?
Yeah, I think so. I think you were saying like if you've got somebody who's got that long-term kind of mindset of building long-term value, you might
Yeah, you've got
structure.
somebody that's you're grooming to be on your leadership team, or they're going to take over the company one day. They may be thinking about the long-term effect, and they're interested in building up their own recurring revenue stream or equity in the business, versus the employee that has more transactional relationship. I do this, then I get this.
Yep.
It's okay to have two different ways to pay.
Totally.
At my integration firm, the current firm that I worked for a long time, we went through this process where we gave our team the choice. Luckily for us, they all landed in one place. Every salesperson wanted to make an upfront commission versus the long-term tail. And that was okay with us. We provided the choice. We allowed our team to choose. And what we ultimately landed on, and this is where I told you I would lay on the plane, was we paid our team 4 times the monthly retail price of a membership as an upfront commission. So if you sold a membership for $100, you're going to get paid $400. There were some caveats. That membership had to last for 12 months. So if it canceled, it churned within the first 12 months, we would deduct that from future commissions. It wouldn't make you pay us back, but you don't owe the pot. And that's really it, right? We pay the upfront commission. We pay it really at the time of the sale. Like, we wanted the dopamine hit of the salesperson having just sold the membership to get the immediate reward of saying, I did this, now I get this. Knowing that most of these relationships do not churn within the first year. And why were we willing to pay 4 times the multiplier on that? Because we know that the average client stays a member for 7 to 9 years. It's a worthy trade-off for us. And we know that the average client that has a long-term relationship with us, what this is all about, right, is building relationships with your clients, will spend 2 to 3 times what they spent on their average project, their first project with you, in their lifetime as a client. So if they spent $100,000 on their first project with you, they're likely to spend another $100,000 or $200,000 with you because you've built a relationship. So again, comes back to what Patrick's saying by don't be a penny pound. I don't remember how you say that thing, but
penny wise, pound foolish.
That one. Don't be that, right? Because there's a lot more to this. But again, if I could give you guys some recommendation, is understand your people, understand the types of salespeople that you work with, and motivate them in the way that they want to be motivated by giving them choice.
Yeah. I want to just add on to that too, Brad. So I love the idea, and I just want to put a finer point on this. You pay them up front, and if the thing falls apart, then you deduct it from future commissions. You don't make them wait the term and then get paid. We want that dopamine up front. And then I've had people say, like, well, what if I pay them and they leave, and they start to work, you go down the spiral again of worst case scenario. And then I just remind them that that's a risk. And if you don't like that much risk, maybe you shouldn't be a business owner, because that's just part of the deal. Just part of the deal. So that's number one. Number two, when we're talking about larger plans that have big renewal moments, so not just like monthly access plans, but maybe larger plans that have labor or parts or something more in, I'd like to to your point, Brad, I'd like to incentivize the promise keepers for renewals. So if we're still working off the same bucket of money, like that $5,000 I was joking about earlier, but I'm not really joking, that $5,000, right? The reason the client renewed is because your promise keepers are doing a killer job. So incentivize them for those renewals. I still like to give the salesperson a little piece of the action as like a lead attribution maintenance type thing. So they get a little kicker every once in a while that makes them happy. To use Jason's deal, the little dopamine hit, they get a little one. But really want to incentivize the people in your service. If you have a service department, a service admin, a service technician, a service manager, whatever, really incentivizing them for those renewals, because they're the ones that are keeping everybody happy. And so we want to have them celebrate in that and keep them happy. So
love it. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're down to about 15 minutes. So I want to shift gears and get a little tactical here and talk about, let's start with, Brad, this is going to be very specific, but you shared this story with me recently, and I thought it was so cool that I want to make sure we touch on this. So I think recently you came across a new way to really practice the pitch of service plans using AI, using ChatGPT in voice mode. Tell us that story and maybe give people this fodder for thought. Maybe this is an experiment they can go run themselves or run with their teams.
Yeah, gosh. Okay. So I'm a nerd that likes sales. I like human behavior. That's why I'm in sales. Like, I like just seeing how people react to things. And I haven't been an integrator now for a couple of years, more than a couple of years. And I talk about this all the time, but I was like, can I actually still do it? Well, I wasn't going to go ask one of my partners if I could go do a consultation for them and see if I could land them a sale and a membership. So what I did was I got onto ChatGPT and I gave it a prompt. I said, hey, I want you to be a customer. I want you to have this type of persona or this client profile. And here are the types of services that my company offers. I want you to basically role play with me. And I'm going to try to sell you a membership from a OneVision partner's perspective. And ultimately, I want you to be harsh with me. Hit me with objections. I want to try to come back at you with kind of a rebuttal to satisfy those objections. And then ultimately, I want you to conclude. I want you to conclude by either choosing to buy or choosing not to buy. It was a really cool experience to get to do that. And then the other thing that was cool about it was, after we were done with this exchange, I was able to ask the prompt or the GPT, how could I have done a better job? and it actually started to dissect like the things that I missed on. And I actually realized I was like, I'm a little out of practice. I haven't done this a little bit. I can't believe I missed that opportunity. But this is something that you guys, I mean, obviously you guys have all heard about Chat GPT by now, but this is something that you guys can do with your teams. You can have your teams do, on their own. And I'm sure there are a bunch of other AI generative tools that you could resource it, but that was a really cool way for me to experiment on the front lines without there being really any risk involved.
Yeah, yeah, because a lot of it's just about repetition, like anything else, right? You just got to get the reps, and that's a great way to go do it in a kind of almost live fire environment, but with zero risk. So I love that, and I happen to know that there are also a bunch of this grow like you can go Google AI role playing sales training software, and like there are companies springing up all over the place that are onto this use case. So I think
Yeah,
that's just a
sure.
very specific actionable thing that people could take away if you're looking for ways to get more practice or get your team more practice. That's definitely something you could look into. But Patrick, what do you think? What are some tactics that you might recommend as far as somebody who's just looking at all of this and saying, okay, I totally understand all of the theory, but I need to go out there and get better. And, short of just going out and just doing it with clients, which, is something we all have to do. Are
Yeah.
there other things that you can recommend for maybe getting repetitions and getting practice and getting better in maybe a less lower risk environment, so to speak?
Yeah, role practice is huge. We don't ever say role play because kids play and professionals practice. So we want to always use, role practice. I like the chat model. I've had some of my clients do that in the manufacturing space. They do that a little bit. And the other thing, kind of a little catchphrase, if you will, is if you're not practicing with your team, you're practicing on your prospects and clients. And we don't want to do that. So we want to be practicing with the team. So I just always recommend practice. I recommend in the Elite Sales Academy, we harp on, growing your brain and reading. So that's a mandate to be part of the team is you're reading every single day. So, reading more content. The book that Brad mentioned is good. There's a couple others. There's one, I was thinking about this when you were talking, Brad, is there's this one called The Platinum Rule, which is another one that talks about personality styles in terms of the sales environment. So, reading, practicing is huge. Getting really good at your presentations and your plans and knowing what you're talking about. And then also, getting into, some additional training program, honing your craft and getting, more experience in that kind of stuff and really kind of opening your mind to what's possible. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago in our elite sales session where how much time we get? I'll make it quick. So I'm a car guy. I used to have a Mini Cooper, and I used to race and do stuff like that. But now with the Mini Cooper is kind of like, oh, take it out to the track and see what's possible. And I did a track day in the Mini Cooper. And then, about an hour or two into the track day, they said, hey, we have this thing where if you want, we'll have a professional instructor take you around in your car so you can kind of see what they do. And a lot of people were really worried about that. Oh my God, I'm not gonna let somebody drive my car, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, here's the keys, let's go. So we jumped in the car and this guy took me through sections of this track. I'll make this story a little shorter that I knew very well from having previously raced on that track. And he did things in my car that I didn't think was humanly possible. I mean, we were like going through sections that I didn't think was even possible to go that fast. We were, tires in the air, the whole 9 yards. And he did it like, I think it was the first lap. After the first lap, I was like, okay, get out, give me the keys, because now I want to go do that. And so I think as we work with coaches and we work with people who are a little bit more advanced than us, such as OneVision, we start to realize that these things are possible and our limiting beliefs, our limiting framework gets wiped out. And we go, oh, that was amazing. And nobody died. We talk about that a lot on ESA. Did you die? No, nobody died. So, I think working with coaching like you do on OneVision or with ESA is huge, and just seeing what's possible, because we have so many limiting beliefs and limiting framework that keeps us from like really reaching our potential. So not to get too philosophical, as Brad was saying, but reading, coaching, peer groups, working with people, practice, all that stuff, just getting better at your craft is huge. And that's what I would just encourage you to do.
Absolutely. I'm a book nerd, so I appreciate the recommendations, and I've seen some enthusiasm in the chat for those book recommendations. So anyone in the audience, if you have other books that you like, throw those in there. I'll selfishly ask. I'm always looking for book recommendations. We're down to just about 9 minutes. I need to leave a few minutes at the end for kind of closing remarks. So we may have to end up doing a third session on this if folks are interested. Hopefully they are. But I do want to at least spend a couple minutes talking about overcoming objections. And I'm going to maybe put you guys on the spot a little bit because we are tight on time. I'll come to you first, Brad. Like, is there sort of one overriding or most common objection that you can think of that you would anticipate from a client, and how would you overcome it?
Yeah, the most common objection that I hear from partners or from clients, from integrators, that they're fearful of is the key person dependency, that the client is used to contacting a certain person, whether that's the salesperson, the CEO, about service, and introducing a structure where they aren't the only person that they talk to about their issues is going to create a rift. And again, I linked you guys to this Help Center article. This talks you through this, resetting client expectations. There's a really healthy way to have this conversation with your clients. And again, we're going to land the plane right now. So imagine your client says, "Hey, Brad, I thought you were my guy. I've spent all this money with you." We've all heard that before. I've spent all this money. Just lean into that. I am your guy. And you're right. You did spend all this money. This is why we are introducing this program. I realize that if you were to call me or text me or email me 3 or 4 times today, you're likely to get 3 or 4 different versions of me. One might be with another customer. And now I have to share my time. Which one of you is now more important? I have a choice to make. One, I might be with my family, and I've got another really important decision to make. Do I enjoy this dinner with my family and ask my daughter how her day was, or do I go take this call? I might be driving. I might be in a good place to have a conversation, but I'm not sitting down my computer. I can't help. So what we did was we staffed up our team to always be in a great position. So now anytime that you've got an issue, you can call, text, or email. We've made it super simple for you to reach out. And a member of our team is going to be in a great position by their computers and by their phones to help. Now, if you aren't getting the experience that you need, that's when I'm going to be available to you. We used to preface this with, "I'm always going to be available to you, but I'm not always available." Those are 2 different things. So that would be my advice. Lean into it. You're right. I am your guy. I am doing this for you because you spent all of this money, and here are the reasons why.
Love it. Patrick, same question to you.
Yeah, I think that we're talking about objection, right? Is that the
Yeah,
big
like
thing?
if you had to pick, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot because we're tight on time. If you had to pick
Yeah.
one kind of most common objection that you should be prepared for as an integrator when you go out and start pushing these plans harder, what would it be, and how would you overcome it?
It's whatever objections are in your head, because a lot of times you're thinking about things that the client's not thinking about, and you have to. The first sale is to yourself, so you got to believe in what you're trying to accomplish here for your company, for your future, for your generational wealth, all that kind of stuff. And you got to believe in that first before you go presenting that to the public. So I would say that that's what you got to deal with first, is whatever's in your head first.
I think that's a great answer. Yeah, overcoming that initial mental roadblock that a lot of us are harboring, sometimes subconsciously, is actually the most important objection, right?
For sure.
I want to say one thing that I want to resonate with you guys as we leave this call. I was thinking about this value of remote support and premium benefits the other day, and I was looking out my window at my tiny little city lawn. I literally have like 250 square feet of lawn in the front and maybe another 400 in the back. And I pay my turf management company $70 a month to make sure that my grass is green, not 12 months a year, probably 9 months a year. And I'm happy to do it. Makes me happy. Your clients are willing to pay you for the services that you provide. You are going to make them happy by doing it. So, to Patrick's point, you just have to kind of step out of your way. You've got to believe that this is something that they want, because they do.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, let me pull the screen share back up here. We'll do a few quick closing remarks. So, Brad, I'm going to come over to you first. And if you could give people just a really quick high level overview of who OneVision is, just in case anyone's not totally familiar, and talk about what we've got up here on the screen.
Yeah. Well, listen, hopefully it's clear, that we are a foundational offering as we help integrators provide 24/7, 365 remote support as part of their premium service plans. We do that white label. We're vendor neutral. We have no technical requirements. We make it really easy for you to get these programs stood up within your business and offer them to all of your customers, the ones you've done business with and everyone that you will do business with. But what makes us really unique is that we help you with all those other things that make this program, kind of difficult to get going. That means helping you establish the membership structure, how to price it, what benefits to put in there, how to market this to your customers, how to sell it, how to manage it, how to bill for it. We can actually do a lot of that for you. We've got a billing system built out to make this all really simple. If you want to learn more, click the QR code, set up a meeting with me. Just like this conversation, I promise you'll leave with something that will empower you to be more successful with your own program, even if you don't move forward with OneVision. If you do decide to move forward, we're offering you guys an incentive. $250 Amazon gift card if you sign up before the end of March. I'm sure if you don't enjoy Amazon, someone in your family will enjoy something from there as well. So
Of course.
hopefully that goes a long way.
Yeah, cool. All right, I'm going to come right over to you, Patrick, and feel free to give everybody just a kind of high-level overview of what you're up to, how to get in touch, and what we've got up here on the screen as well.
Yeah, so we've partnered with Vital for the Elite Sales Academy. This is a weekly coaching program. We meet every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We usually cover a 10-minute tactic, and then we get into some open coaching time if you've done your homework, which is super fun because we never know what we're going to talk about. So we talk about sales challenges, salespeople challenges, all that kind of stuff. It's a wild ride. I've seen a few people in here today that are in our group. I know Mark is in our group, and Maddie Brown is in our group. I think there's a couple other people that were floating around here. So super fun time, tons of value. We also have an online platform where everything we've ever done, including like this session, is on the online platform, including we do tools every week. Also, so we do a little cheat sheet. If we do cover a session you're really into, we do a little PDF cheat sheet that you can literally download, print it out, stick it on your desk, and start doing better stuff or stop doing dumb stuff, whatever it is we're talking about. So that's that. The second QR code is my LinkedIn direct. And we are doing a fast action bonus also until the end of the week. If you sign up for ESA, you get your choice of a hiring handbook or a sales process template. So the hiring handbook is we joke that it's patented, but it's not. It's our patented 8-stage process to hiring better salespeople. And then, so we give you that handbook or our sales process template, which will help you dial in your sales process in case it is all over the map. So you get to pick one of those. It's supposed to be to the end of the week. If we get somebody on the fence, we'll probably extend it a little bit, but that's where we're at there. Thank you for the prompts there from John Bates and Maddie Brown. So thank you guys.
Yeah, great feedback there in the chat. So once again, Brad and Patrick, thank you guys so much for being here and contributing your sales expertise to the conversation. It's been a ton of fun having these, and I did see a bunch of folks chimed in with that number 3 in the chat to being interested in a third session. So I think we'll definitely look to do that. If you received an email or you saw a social post about it, just continue to follow along in those same channels. We'll announce the third session, and we'll look forward to seeing you on that. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up so everybody can get back to doing what you need to do today. We really do appreciate you taking a bit of time out of your day to be here and join us. We really, really hope you got some value out of it. And if you're interested in following up with either OneVision or Patrick and the ESA initiative, please do. We would definitely appreciate that. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up today's webinar. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
See ya.